have always getting better response from customers. Lot of footfall. From year 2015 we are participating in ProPak Asia Thailand, and this year also due to COVID there are lesser movement, but the key customer who are our customer and more people who are interested in our product are visiting frequently.
At first, Liquid Box planned to be in ProPak exhibition and have a booth, actual booth there anyway, because we know that people around the world will come to ProPak especially for the packaging business. However, the COVID situation did not support us that much to be physically being there to meet our potential client and also our partners. So ProPak has offered us a hybrid exhibition, which actually answering what we are looking for, because we still want to meet our potential clients and also our partner, but without physically being there. So that's why, with no hesitation, we actually participate in hybrid exhibition.
Wonderful to be today, this morning, midday, evening, all around the world. We've got viewers from nearly every continent. My name is Pia Pina. I'm the president of the World Packaging Organization, and I will be the moderator and your host today. So this event, which is Meeting the Experts, is the first of a three-part series. And it's going to be exciting. The mere fact is that we have 9 experts over these three weeks. Tonight we've got 3 experts in their own right, and let me start off by introducing to you our first expert. Her name is Nerida Kelton. Nerida is the Executive Director of the Australian Institute of Packaging, but she's also the Vice President of Sustainability and Save Food. And as you rightly know, tonight or today is Sustainability in Packaging. So she is a member of the WPO board representing Australia and New Zealand. She's been in the industry for 23 years, and she's very involved in the Save Food Packaging Consortium project within the Fight Food Waste Cooperative Research Centre, representing the Department of Environment and Energy's National Food Waste Strategy Steering Committee. But most of all, the part that I like about Nerida is that she is committed to helping educate and train packaging professionals in the importance of sustainable and circular packaging design and recognising best practice in this area. Nerida.
Thank you, Pierre, and thank you very much for having me tonight. All I would like to do just briefly is just touch on a few things that the WPO does in terms of sustainability and Save Food. So the WPO has a number of goals for the next 3 years, and the key ones are that we are wanting to reduce food waste globally, reduce packaging waste globally, and increase packaging awareness through education. The WPO also wishes to target unnecessary packaging, look at helping phase out materials that are not recyclable or recoverable, and also trying to advance and assist the development of mono-material packaging. We do this through our 53 member countries around the world and significant partnerships, as you can see on screen. And the partnerships are very critical to all of the conversations that we're having within training and education globally. For me, one of the most important things is that when you talk about sustainability and you think about your shift towards sustainable design, please consider food waste. And please consider the environmental impact of food waste at the same time as when you're looking at redesigning your packaging. So obviously the conversation is continually around circular economy, moving it from a linear to a more circular approach. But what we're trying to do is to look at designing in a new way. We're trying to rethink and redesign in a new way. And we're trying to make sure that everything that we do is circular and reused over and over and over again as much as possible. So for me, this is the best hierarchy to think about. And the first one is not actually recycling, it's rethinking. So packaging designers and engineers around the world need to start rethinking the way they're designing their packaging. Then they have this wonderful opportunity at the moment to redesign. So you don't have to design the way you used to, and you have the capabilities now and the opportunity to redesign. And then look at reducing, reusing, and recycling. So when you look at the circular economy, think about it like this. It's about using things longer, using them again, making it clean, and using less. And I would encourage you to just think about those 4 simple steps when you're redesigning your packaging. Now, the WPO also has a prestigious global awards program, and the 53 member countries around the world are involved in this. But one of the things that's really important in the WPO's awards is that we have a Sustainable Packaging Design Award category, and we also have a Packaging that Saves Food Design category. And why they're important, you ask? They're important because they are offering you the opportunity to learn from other people, and they're offering you examples of best practice in this area. So that's my small brief take on sustainability, and I look forward to lots of questions at the end.
Thanks, Nerida. And I like that, that rethinking. That's a new rethinking. I like that one. And you also mentioned there redesign in a new way, which leads me into introducing our next expert, because he'll be touching on this, I know. And he is Dr. Ernest Krottendorfer, who is the co-managing partner of Circular Analytics, and they're based in Vienna in Austria. They are a company in the field of circular packaging design, and they develop their services are for the development of sustainable packaging, looking at a holistic approach. And that is so important, this holistic approach. And I hope I'll be able to steer the questions later on in this sort of area. Ernest is also a lecturer at the Packaging and Resource Management Department at the University of Applied Sciences in Vienna. And he also serves on the World Packaging Organization board representing PackForce, our Austrian member. So with no further ado, over to you, Ernest.
So Pierre, thank you very much for your kind introduction, and welcome to everybody who is watching this event today. As Pierre has said, I'm coming from the University of Applied Sciences campus Vienna, from the Packaging and Resource Management Department, but I'm also acting as Managing Director of PackForce Austria, the Austrian member of the World Packaging Organization, and I'm Managing Partner of Circular Analytics, which is a consulting company in the field of circular packaging design. The areas we are covering is, of course, circular economy. Here we are working on circular packaging design and on circular packaging design guidelines. We have produced the Austrian Circular Packaging Design Guideline, which is now in its 4th edition. And the approach that we are following here is the holistic sustainability assessment. So we are not only looking into recyclability and circular design of a product, we are also looking into the resource efficiency of this product, and we are also looking into product protection of packaging, because product protection is very important, because if you lose a product, the environmental impact is much, much greater than the packaging itself. We are also working on a tool that is called Packaging Cockpit. Here we are doing automated calculations of recyclability and life cycle analysis for packaging, and this tool also does management and reporting of packaging data. And we are also working on food safety. And here we are working on the assessment of the genotoxicity of packaging with new test methods. This is especially important when you design products made out of recyclates. I have been asked to give you a perspective of what's going on in Europe. And in Europe at the moment, in the field of packaging, there is going on quite a lot. The new European Commission has launched a so-called European Green Deal, which gives sustainability the top priority in the political discussion. And here the aim is to be climate neutral by 2050. And with regards to packaging, the aim is to have all packaging reusable or recyclable by 2030, which is a huge challenge for the packaging industry. And there is massive legal requirements. There are lots of new directives coming out. There is an amendment of the Packaging and Packaging Waste Directive, which will tackle complex packaging, which will make recycled content mandatory, and which will avoid single-use packaging. Then we have a Waste Framework Directive, which will be coming up. This is about eco-modulation of ERP schemes, and there is a much bigger focus on waste prevention over recycling in the future. Then there is a focus on the extended producer responsibility. This is a national issue, and here the European Commission will pose some general common minimum requirements. And as I said before, there will be eco-modulation of ERPs coming. So ERP fees will be based in the future on the recyclability, the recycling rate, the reusability, or the recycling content of a packaging material. And then we also have the Single-Use Plastics Directive, which is addressing marine litter, and which will bring bans, consumption reductions, and labeling requirements for certain plastic products. Especially important are the higher recycling rates that are coming. So for all packaging, 2025, the first target will tackle, and it's 65% for all packaging, 50% for plastic. And in 2030, it's 70% for all packaging and 55% for plastic. And by 2030, all plastic packaging must be recyclable. So there is a paradigm shift in the European policy requirements. There's further promoting of eco-design. There is a ban of single-use products, and there is a much higher response to consumer expectations for less packaging and more sustainable solutions. And also there's an increased focus on deforestation and restoring biodiversity. So there is a real challenge for the packaging industry. And the interesting thing is that in Europe, big retailers already are driving this change and are already pushing forward a policy of reducing plastics, having higher recycling rates, having all their materials recyclable. So retailers are pushing this change already. So thank you for your attention now, and I'm happy to answer questions that might be coming during the discussion.
Well, thank you very much for that, Ernest, and certainly good to have someone like you on the panel that is keeping up with what's happening in Europe, especially from a legality perspective. And I'm always keen to hear more about extended producer responsibility, because I think and I believe that that is where the future lies across our globe. All right, the next expert I'd like to introduce, our third one, and that is Surendra Soni. Now, Surendra Soni is with Sealed Air and has been there since 2007. So he's got about 20 years experience in the plastics packaging and the cleaning sanitation industry for food and for beverages. He serves on various committees and in advisory capacity, but is a chemical engineer by profession and an alumnus of INSEAD in France. Surendra is from Bangkok in Thailand, and we welcome you, Surendra.
Thank you, Professor. Good afternoon to you, and a very warm welcome to all the attendees on today afternoon's call. So it's a pleasure as always to be on these forums, talking about things that really matter for the environment, for the world. So I'll just take a few minutes to kind of give you a perspective and then put things into context. Just sharing my screen. Okay. Prof, can you confirm this, that it's visible?
Yeah, we can see that.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. So I'll skip the introduction. Thank you, Professor. You've already done that. So from Sealed Air, we are actually focused in the field of flexible packaging, and it's an extremely, sustainability for us is an extremely important topic, right? So we have this 2025 sustainability pledge that we've signed, where we're saying that by 2025, 100% of our products would be either recyclable, 100% recyclable or reusable in some context. So it's all about trying to eliminate plastic waste. So going back to the point that Nerida made in terms of rethinking, redesigning, and those are the things that Sealed Air is really working on. So a lot of investment, a lot of time, effort is going into reinvigorating our innovation development department for us to be able to arrive at that 2025 pledge that we have made. And for us, sustainability is really at the core of everything we do, right? And that reflects in the mission statement, where we are saying that we're in the business to protect, to solve critical packaging challenges, and to make our world better than we found it. And this is there are three elements to this equation. So one is the business of protection, the point that Dr. Ernest made, right? So because the cost of food going waste itself is humongous, and it has fallout effects on the resources of the planet, or any other non-food product during the course of its shipment. If it gets damaged, then there's an economic fallout to that. So we are trying to protect your valuable resources, your products, be it food or non-food, and we are trying to solve those packaging challenges, and eventually through this make the world better than what we found, so that our future generations live in a more sustainable world. Sealed Air as an organization is in the operates across the globe. We have about 2/3 of the business focused towards the food packaging, and about the balance 1/3 is non-food packaging, which is spanning across electronics, e-commerce, and automation, and other industrial applications. I spoke about the sustainability pledge, but again, there is an active innovation program that is leading towards the pledge, right? That is really working towards ensuring that we attain that, meet the conditions that we have defined for ourselves under that pledge. And a lot of those innovation programs are centered around these 4 pillars, as you would see, right? So choosing the right material itself is extremely important from an end of life cycle assessment. Designing, and both Dr. Ernest and Nerida made this, that redesign is way up in the hierarchy before you even start talking about recycling. Then how do you recover that product? So eventually we choose materials, or one chooses materials into your packaging design basis what are the current recovery options, what are the technology, and so on and so forth. And finally, it is all about putting the right education in place. And one of the key purposes of these webinars that we are sitting here this afternoon is about sending that message across to all us responsible consumers, all us responsible producers out there in the world. So now some of the examples quickly I'll touch upon, and just a couple of those. So for instance, if you look at this auto pouch system, the second one, these are flex prep pouches, flexible pouches, which help to increase the yield in a in a quick service restaurant, typically the conventional packaging has, say, yield of about 90 to 92%, which means that almost about 8 to 10% of the food is going waste because it's difficult to extract the entire thing. But through this innovative technology that we have developed, we're able to increase that yield from 90% straight all the way to 97, 98%. So there's a huge savings in terms of the food waste reduction itself. And the fact that today there are large containers being used to package those sauces, and you're converting them into smaller pouches, which eventually take a much smaller carbon footprint, so to say. So that's just to give you a perspective on the various programs that we kind of work. There are many other products that we have developed. Another one that I just want to quickly call out is this Cryovac Darfresh on board. In a conventional tray sealing system, the side trim losses of the plastic itself is close to 30 to 40%. Now we've developed this technology on a skin packaging system, which helps to reduce that scrap to zero. So today we have literally zero trim scrap on this tray system. So as I said, there's a lot of focus going on in terms of developing these kind of more innovative solutions, all towards, because we believe sustainability is really a competitive advantage for us, and it offers that differentiation that we offer to our customers. Now, in today's environmental context, the challenges are really complex, right? So you're talking of not one single solution that serves all the discussions or all the challenges. So you're talking of climate change, you're talking of pollution, and ocean plastic really occupies a very, very high mind space in a lot of our discussions. Okay, there's good amount of bad press. But at the same time, that is driving a lot of focus and driving a lot of action as well, so to say. So when we design things, we look at the carbon footprint, both from an efficiency performance perspective. We spoke about food waste reduction. We spoke about product protection, also keeping in mind the materials that we use and the recovery side of it, so as to start moving towards that circular loop, which we really want to create end of the day. So the idea is how much of it can we move from a linear economy today into a circular economy, and make it a viable, I would say, both a technically as well as a commercially viable solution. So these are core to our discussions, and in order to for that circular economy to actually happen, there is a closed loop collaboration that is required. We've demonstrated this through certain technology that we launched in the Europe. It's now a proven concept where we tied hands with a retailer and a processor, a resin manufacturer, ourselves, as well as the final brand owner. So it was about putting together all different stakeholders into that common loop and making this product viable eventually, both from a technical as well as a commercial standpoint. So yes, closed loop recycling is possible, and Sealed Air is committed towards meeting its goals as we speak. So as we go, I'll probably get time to share some of the examples we have had in terms of the creating a truly recycling economy through our various products and innovative solutions, as well as the start off in terms of circular economy with that one project that we've started in Europe. So look forward to this discussion. Thank you, Pierre, back to you.
Right, thanks very much. We've got to get on now and into the question. So may I remind all of you that please enter your any questions you might have in the chat show, and I'll pick them up there. Wonderful. Right, so I'm going to kick off by asking a couple of questions, and the first one I'd like to direct at Nerida. Nerida, how does one assess how green, as in, you know what I mean by green, is one's products, and what is your carbon footprint? How do you assess this?
It's a really good question, Pierre, because we talk about this on a daily basis. The first thing is to never assume that people are telling you the truth about their product. So never make the assumption, because there's a significant amount of greenwashing out there at the moment in the industry saying that they're eco-friendly and sustainable. So there's two ways that you can do it. Ensure that you are purchasing products that you understand the specifications of the materials. So make sure you are talking to your suppliers and getting their material specifications. Also making sure that they are certified to the standards that you require in the region that you're selling your product. And the other one is when you are moving materials from one to another, do a life cycle assessment. I cannot encourage people more to undertake LCAs. You don't have to undertake full LCAs, but streamlined LCAs are very important when you're moving one material to another and making an assumption that it's more sustainable. LCA is critical.
Thank you. Ernest, you wanted to add something there?
Yeah, assessing sustainability for packaging is our business. So what we do is we are looking not only into the recyclability of a packaging material, and the recyclability primarily is defined by the recycling infrastructure that you have in a certain country. We are also looking into the actual recycling rates, because being designed as technically recyclable doesn't mean that it is really recyclable. So the actual recycling rate is a very important measure, so to say. And then we are also looking into all the aspects of life cycle analysis, as Nerida has said. And there is a lot of trade-off, obviously, because products that are easily recyclable might not have a good life cycle analysis, and the other way around. So this is something you have to understand very clearly. And then you have to also look into food waste, because certain packages create more packaging-induced food waste than others. And if you measure the life cycle of the food that you lose, you might find out that actually the environmental impact of the food that you lose is much, much higher than the environmental impact of the packaging itself. So that's a very, very difficult equation, and you have to really look at it holistically, and you really have to look at it from the point of view of the infrastructure that you have in a specific country.
So then, Ernest, based on that, in terms of assessment, and looking at energy sources like wind and solar, how important is this in sustainability assessments?
Yeah, when you look at life cycle assessments for certain products, energy is very, very important and has a very high impact on the global warming potential. And if you have sources of alternative energy available, of course, you can improve very much your environmental impact, clearly.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Surendra, let's get to you now on from your side, and I know you spend a lot of time in the flexible industry, for example.
Yep.
How is one, or how does one consider flexible packaging recyclable?
Okay, I guess see, the recyclability of a package, right, be it flexible or otherwise, really depends on the fact that it fits into that particular collection, sorting, and processing infrastructure, so to say. So what I'm trying to say is that for a package to be recyclable, there has to be somebody who's collecting it, there has to be somebody who's sorting it, and eventually there is a technology by which that particular collected, sorted product gets converted into a new product, which we call as a recycled content, right? If one or more of these criteria is missing, then obviously you wouldn't call it as a recycled product. Okay, so that's the fundamental definition, so to say, where we begin with. Having said that, there has to be also the fact that you've got to consider that this particular infrastructure has to be accessible to a majority population within a given geographic area. And when I say accessible, it's about, say, you or Nerida or Ernest having access to, say, outside of home drop-off point, a curbside drop-off area, or you drop off your packaging waste into a retail store nearby the place where you live. So that particular accessibility also has to be there to start back from the point of collection, as I mentioned earlier. The third bit that I would want to mention here is going back to the flexible point of it, right? You said flexible packaging can be considered recyclable or not. See, the fact of the matter really is that flexible packaging is still at a very evolutionary stage when it comes to actual recycling in the world today. The adoption is very low, and there are multiple reasons for it. And primary of those are, say, for instance, you have a whole lot of multi-layer material which is being used as packaging, going towards barrier properties, or trying to provide barrier properties, trying to provide shelf life extension of the product that you're packing, trying to give protection itself, which means that the technology that you use in making that flexible packaging itself is a high-end technology, where you often end up using multi-layer laminate structures, which, or for instance, you also use up you use up multi-layer coax structures as well. And what this means is that from a recyclability perspective, it becomes that much more difficult for one to identify and classify as to which recycling stream should I put it back in. So that has been one of the challenges for the flexible packaging to go into recycling. But then, having said that, I think technology is there. There is a lot of demand that is coming in terms of producers wanting to use recycled content into their finished goods. So that part is encouraging.
I don't want you moving into another question. We've got to stick to that question only, and I answer just that particular question. So, but I want to bring Ernest in here. Ernest, you wanted to add something there.
Yeah, I think Surendra has given a very good and very complex definition of recyclability. It's about collection, it's about sortability, it's about the recycling process. When we assess recyclability, we also look into the marketability of the recyclate. Because if the recyclate has no value, we don't classify that material as recyclable. Because you have to give it back it has to come back to the cycle, and you have to give the material the same properties as the original one, or similar to the original one. So if you make a park bench out of a packaging material, we don't consider it as recycling.
Okay. Nerida, we have a number of companies represented and listening in on this webinar today. And this question sort of relates to those employees, because how does one influence them if you want to drive sustainability in your company? How do you bring your employees on board to believe in what you're thinking?
Yeah, I think it's about ownership. Like making sure that the business has established pledges and goals and targets of their own that they can bring the employees into and be involved in, so that it can encourage ownership of their own environmental impact. I say this often, and people that have heard me speak know this. It's all about our own responsibility and our own environmental impact and our own footprint. And I think that when you spend enough time talking about it, people do understand that they have their own sole responsibility to ensure that they have the lowest environmental impact. And that could be around food waste or composting or collections and recovery of the materials that they're recycling in their homes or their offices. So developing a program in the office and for their homes and the community, I think is really important for them to understand that we all have a responsibility in this.
Thank you. Suren, you had a comment you'd like to make on that one?
Yes. This is an interesting topic for us in Sealed Air, because just a month back, Alan, right? And we started off this program called Sustainability Champions within the organization, where we are enrolling people from different countries within the Sealed Air family to start discussing, brainstorming as to what their ideas are in terms of bringing about small changes. Because as Nerida rightly said, this change has to begin at your doorstep. You can't expect things that somebody else will start doing things and things will change. So it has to start with you, and you got to start taking ownership. So I think from that perspective, I'm extremely proud that Sealed Air kicked off this Sustainability Champions, and this is spreading across all the regions. And we've created a charter for ourselves. We've started the first brainstorming sessions. We're looking at how we can contribute, going beyond our day-to-day work responsibilities. So I think it's a great question, and thanks for bringing this topic up, Professor.
Ernest, we're staying on the topic of companies. And I know with your experience, this would be an easy one for you. What would your message be to the financial folk of a company? What % of your capital expenditures should be related to sustainability?
I think I can't give a direct figure, because this depends from industry to industry, but I think there is already a lot of investment going into sustainability, because in the last years, there has been a lot of investments going into energy reduction, reduction of water consumption, reducing wastewater, reducing air pollution. So there is already a very high amount of money going into sustainability. But I think especially in Europe, with the new legislation now coming out, there will be even more money to be invested into sustainability. The European Union is talking about amounts that are so high you can't imagine. When I've heard these figures, it goes into the billions, thousands of billions into sustainability over the next years. So there is an enormous amount of investment going into it.
Okay. Surendra, coming back to you, I'm sure you're aware of those 3 E's they talk about in sustainability, being economy, ecology, and equity. So if one explores this avenue, how do you anticipate the choices that one makes today that will affect the folk tomorrow?
Economy, ecology, and equity. Right? Equity. Okay. I think this is a very deep topic, Professor, because you're talking
and that's why I'm asking you it.
Yeah, it's an extremely deep topic, because we're talking of making the right decisions, and where we are actually going to be creating or making a world that is more sustainable for our future generations to come. And it is with that much more responsibility, that much more sense of involvement, we got to make those choices. So to me, it is not one against the other. It is one with the other two. So that's how I would look at it, right? And the fact is that let me give you a perspective in terms of what I mean. A lot of corporates and at Sealed Air, I'll again bring in that that particular perspective. We believe in what we call as the triple bottom line approach, right? This is about exactly fitting into those 3 E's that you spoke about, and we call it as people, profit, and the planet, which means all 3 have to necessarily go hand in hand. And as I said earlier, for us, this approach is our fundamental basis for defining sustainability as a competitive advantage, rather than something that, say, we are forced to do or we have to do. No. And this builds into our own mission statement, which I said earlier, about trying to make the world a better place. Now, obviously, that it's not a hollow statement. You've got to start putting actions behind it. So it's about making the right choices against each of those three E's or three P's, as what we call, towards the triple bottom line effect. For instance, I very briefly spoke about our sustainability pledge, right? It is all about by 2025. And I know Dr. Ernest said that the European Union and a few other countries within are defining those guidelines by 2030. There are certain criteria to be met. We are giving ourselves aggressive challenges. We are pushing investments behind just the point that you made now. We're pushing a lot of investments behind our innovation and development programs to ensure that we reach that state of 100% recyclable or reusable material by 2025. And some of the slides that, some of the examples that I mentioned to you earlier speak to those challenges that we've taken for ourselves. So I think eventually, I'll just say that it is not one against the other. It's hand-holding each of those three things and then leading the actions towards a better world.
Okay, good. Now we're still sticking with the companies, because we've got a lot of companies that are listening to us. So Nerida, should one then in a company have a formal program, sustainability program? And if so, what role does sustainability play in the company's overall strategic plan?
Another good question.
Hence why I'm asking you.
So a lot of the conversation at the moment in the industry is predominantly around sustainable packaging, but it needs to go up a lot higher in the businesses. So when a business is establishing their business practices and their governance, sustainability and business practices for sustainability must be embedded in their business. So a really good example of that is one of the largest retailers in Australia just announced yesterday that they have their first sustainability director in their executive team. And that is an incredible mark of improvement for that business and for the industry, because they are officially recognizing that sustainability must be discussed as a part of business and business practices. And we do need to understand that sustainable business practices are everything from water, energy, the way that you run your machines, the way you put solar or don't put solar on your business roofs, etc., etc. It's how you power your plants. It's not just about sustainable packaging. So yes, it's absolutely critical to every business to have a plan and to have it as a part of their embedded businesses.
Excellent. I like that answer, but I'm going to come back to that later on.
Can I add a few points there, Prof?
Okay.
Right. I think that's a very, very fundamental question that is very important as well. And a lot of companies have started recognizing this. They're putting people right high up in those decision-making seats, so to say, in the XLT or on the regional leadership teams. For us, sustainability, as Nerida rightly pointed out, I just want to build on that point, is it's not just about trying to create a recyclable packaging, right? It doesn't start and it doesn't end there. It's about how do we empower people to start taking those decisions? How do we empower our innovation and development team in terms of the resources that they need, in terms of the expenses that they need? It's also going beyond and recognizing the fact that you got to start making your own internal operations much more energy efficient, right? So from a carbon disclosure perspective as well, and as Sealed Air, we have signed up on the CDP as well for 2040. Saying net zero by 2040. So I think there are various angles to sustainability, and this is no more a good to have. It is a must have kind of a program, I would say.
Okay, Ernest, I know I'm putting pressure on you on the financial side, but I know that you're involved in that with many businesses. So, what business or the value should one see from your sustainability efforts? How much value in monetary terms? You know, you put a lot of effort into it. How do you measure the return?
A recent study shows that among consumers, 25% of the consumers are prepared to pay more for sustainable products now.
Okay.
And we see that retailers are already accommodating this trend in a very strong way. Not only that they want to be CO2 neutral, there is a lot of push from the retailers for sustainable products in their shelves because people are buying these products. And I think there's a lot of a big growing sustainability business already there and strongly growing. So the value, I think, is very clearly to be seen. And the retailers, the consumer industry is already acting to that. There are big growing sustainability markets, so to say.
All right. Surendra, a moment ago, I spoke about the 3 E's and you mentioned the 3 P's, which is really the principles or the pillars of sustainability. I recently read they're actually 4 because they've split human and social. So bearing in mind now that these 4 pillars being human, social, economic, and environmental, how does one seek equilibrium between them? And what constitutes the main challenges?
Oh, okay. That's a deep one. Okay. And I think that's a good follow through on the triple E discussion that we just had. To me, you add a human angle and a social angle. Human is an individual within that society that he's a part of. So I would say they're related. And from a human angle, there are challenges. There are certain. Firstly, it's about those people starting to accept, become aware that they have certain responsibilities in the society in terms of adapting to more sustainable practices. And when I say sustainable practices, it is about, say, for instance, okay, let me bring this particular example, right? How do I make the right decisions when it comes to waste disposal after I consume a product and I have the empty package with me? Okay, it's about making those right choices. First, it's about educating yourself. Before even I do that, first is if I take a step back further, is about trying to identify whether I really need that single-use plastic for one single use, or am I better off using a reusable container for multiple reruns, and can I avoid that? Okay, so those are certain awareness, those are certain acknowledgements, sense of responsibilities that we got to start building as humans and as a society at large. We got to pause, we got to think and take more informed decisions. I think some of the biggest issues that are staring us in the eye today, and I'll go back to that ocean plastics example, is not because of plastic, but it is because of the way we disposed that plastic away without thinking. Okay, and I'm not saying it is everybody, but there is some people who are doing that, and hence we're finding those plastics in places where they should not be eventually. So educating ourselves, educating the consumers is a critical aspect of this journey, I would say. That's from a human social angle. The other point you said was economic,
The main
right?
challenges.
Yeah. Challenges from an economic or an environmental perspective would be economic. I think are primarily there are economic angles to the problems that lie in front of us if we don't solve them. Okay. For instance, food waste reduction. We all know that it is what probably about 700 odd billion US dollars worth of food waste going food going waste every year, and not to think of the humongous effect that this particular food has on the resources that have been consumed in making that food, okay, which could be land, water, energy, and so on. And what happens is bulk of it ends up into landfill and starts getting into greenhouse gas effect emissions. That's the environmental angle of it. Then there's the economic angle of this food going waste. All of these are challenges which are facing us now. I think we got to start taking those steps wherein technology, adoption of that technology, and making it both technically and a commercially viable technologies. And that's where I think I'll just go back to that circular economy loop, which Dr. Ernest, Nerida, yourself, and we spoke about very briefly earlier. So all the stakeholders in the system have to start talking and then creating that loop whereby it becomes a more effective loop, both from a technical and an economic viability perspective. The final angle is perhaps as consumers. I think it was music to my ears when Dr. Ernest said that he's seeing a change in consumers' perception of the willingness to pay. So that's good. Adoption of new technology is slowly but surely taking place. But I think from a packaging solution provider like ourselves, we also look at the fact of how do we make that packaging more economically viable, not just from a packaging cost perspective, but we look at what we call as the total cost of operation. So we sit down with the processor and then help arrive at the total cost, where we're looking at savings on food waste, where we're looking at logistics improvements, where we're looking at warehouse efficiency, we're looking at operational throughput and so on and so forth. So I think once you look at the holistic picture and break them down and put this together on a total cost of operation basis, that's when it starts making sense. That's when all angles start falling into place, I would say.
Thank you. Nerida, you had a comment you want to add to Shirin's?
I had two, actually. One of them was when you're talking about food waste, the SEE aspect is really important in the social, because the social is actually 300 million people starving around the world. So when you look at the graphs of 1/3 of food being produced is wasted, 300 million people starving and massive carbon emissions in the middle, that's when you can actually show them in a graph. When you're talking about recovery or recyclability of packaging, for me, the hardest and most challenging one is consumer behavior. It's changing consumer behavior and consumers' attitudes towards the purchasing of more sustainable packaging or more recyclable packaging. And sometimes it comes down to cost, but it's pretty much around education, about them understanding what their ownership and responsibility is in buying more sustainable packaging.
I like that comment. You know, and in some cases, a cultural shift, I would imagine. Nerida, the spotlight's still on you. Knowing that you are looking after the portfolio in the World Packaging Organization of Sustainability, which is a massive portfolio and a very important one currently, how does one set objectives or targets of your sustainability efforts? And then how do you evaluate the progress being made in meeting those goals? I'm sure this answer that you will give will help many folk listening in on this program.
Well, I think there's a lot of examples globally now, from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation down to all of the country and regional pledges and targets, but it's really about measurement. It's making sure that there's a target and measuring it and acting on it. And for me, one of the most important things is if you're new to moving to more sustainable business practices, don't panic about having to meet it by 2025, or don't panic that you have to have 100% PCR in all of your products. Just pick something small, slowly do the steps and start achieving them. Target, measure, and act. and make sure that you communicate to your consumers the whole way along what you're achieving, even if it's this much volume and tonnage, or you're reducing so many single-use plastic, tonnage in your warehouse, or you're putting solar on your roof. Tell people what you're doing and take them on the journey with you and show them that you are trying to do something. I think small steps for a lot of the small businesses. Don't think you have to do everything all at once, particularly around recycled content. You do not have to move to 80, 100% recycled content. You can start at 20 and 30.
Thank you. Ernest, I know you're doing lots of LCA analysis and so on. So are there viable plastic packaging alternatives?
Of course. I mean, there are so many products where there are no other solution than using plastic because of barrier, because of product protection. So for certain applications, at the moment, I think you can't avoid plastic.
Okay. All right, moving back to you, Suren. Can bio-based polyethylene be recycled like normal polyethylene? Your microphone is off.
Yeah. Bio-based polyethylene. Okay, can you just repeat that for me?
Yeah, can bio-based polyethylene be recycled like normal straightforward polyethylene?
I think it could be. But eventually, irrespective of the feedstock, I guess the downstream process would be same. If it's the P is being processed, eventually it should be able to be recycled. But clearly, for us, let's first try and understand what a bio-based material itself is. Right? It comes from either a plant or an animal feedstock, which often is a renewable content. So to that extent, there is a degree of possibility. Now, did you also have something else to ask? I think I just lost that.
No, not now. No.
Okay.
Okay. I want to, the hour is up. That's how fast this thing goes. But I want to ask you all the same question on this last one, because I want to hear each of you give your own analysis, but that you only have 30 seconds. So when 30 seconds is up, I'm going to cut you. So you've got to get into that 30-second, the answer here. And it's a fairly easy one. Well, it's easy answer, but a difficult question, because, we hear all this, and it's a lot of information that everyone is listening to that you three have given. And it gets quite involved for some people, and they get quite frightened about the whole thing because it's just too much. How do we get into this whole sustainability world? And so the question, starting here, Neruda, then I'm Ernest following 30 seconds later, and then Suren closing it off. How can we actively increase recycling and accelerate the circular economy?
Infrastructure, government support, and better technologies locally and globally.
That was only 5 seconds.
And funding, lots of funding.
Okay, Ernest, I'm sure you'll counter that with something.
Yeah, I think I will also be very short because Nerida already had it in her presentation. It's rethink, redesign, and also infrastructure, I think. I expect a lot of redesign in the next years to come. So packaging designers will face a very huge challenge.
So I mean, you've simplified it nicely there, the two of you, in terms of keeping it easy. And certainly the rethinking one is a very important one. But let's see if Suren's going to change that one slightly.
All right. So yeah, while it certainly will begin with redesign, I think the crux of the matter for us in terms of increasing the adoption And increasing the rates of recycling will rely on having a viable technology. And then that will start with the process of collection, sorting, and eventually how we put that back into the stream. So to me, I think the collection sorting itself lies on fundamental education and people owning up their responsibilities. So that's how I would like to close it.
Excellent answer from all three of you. And I hope that the listeners have grasped that last question, really solidly. It's been delightful talking to the three of you and hearing all the comments and the interaction between the three of you. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I can't believe that an hour can pass so quickly. However, all good things come to an end. So thank you very much. Ernest from Vienna in Austria, we really appreciate your involvement. Suren in Bangkok, Thailand, great to have you with us again. And I hope all goes well in Thailand in the coming weeks with the coronavirus. And Nerida out of Brisbane in Australia, thank you for joining us and bringing another perspective into the arena. I wish all of you a wonderful afternoon and a good evening. Thank you to all our listeners from all over the world. Thank you for joining us today. Please remember to join us next week for the second session on the 16th of June, same time, same place. And the topic then is recycling in packaging. Thank you and good day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.